Hello and welcome to this video today on awakening. Actually, a very broad subject. My name is Angela Nicholson. I am the visionary at Color of Kismet. I create essential oil blends that help support and move emotional and spiritual things out of your life. I'm also a trauma therapist and a metaphysical healer and teacher. I do a lot of different things to bring information and content to people. I have a Patreon page as well as this YouTube channel. I also have a website where I sell my stuff. And as I mentioned, I am a healer. So I have all kinds of ways to learn and to access information. Very, very soon, I will have a class up, my very first class on Ascended Masters that you can get at any time. If you want to be on that mailing list, please go to my website and sign up to be notified when it comes out. Okay, please consider subscribing to this channel if you enjoy the content that I provide. And please forward or share these videos with people that you think would enjoy the content that I create. Okay, so awakening. It's a really big topic these days. A lot of people are going through their awakening process. Many of us have already begun, but there are lots and lots of people who are coming on board. And it's all very exciting, in my opinion. But one of the things that, people find me for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of people who are kind of have just started their spiritual awakening journey find me to help them get on the right track, to help, clear out the stuff they need to clear out so that they can get where they're going. And sometimes people will book sessions with me and just ask me questions. And I find that interesting. I'm like, you can you can get answers to these questions for less money. In any case, awakening. Recently, I had somebody ask me, she was telling me all the stuff that was going on in her life. It was a client. And she was like, what do you think? And I was like, what do you mean? What do I think? And she said, do you think that I am awakening, that I'm in that process? And I thought, oh yeah, but I also at the same time thought, oh gosh, I guess, yeah, when you're first coming online, it's hard to know if what you're experiencing really is that. So I thought I would do a real quick video on just what awakening can look like, what it often does look like for people. So one of the first things that happens is that there is a recognition that things that are out there in the world that you've always thought was a certain way, or it meant a certain thing, or, to be quite honest, most of us grow up and spend a lot of our lives believing that we're told the truth. And one of the very first things that starts to happen when you're awakening is you begin to question the things that you always thought were the truth. And that often is prompted by some big major thing. Honestly, the pandemic was a really big push for awakening for a lot of people. And the reason was because there was a lot of fear in the air. There was a lot of conflicting information. People were polarizing themselves, and it forced us into looking closer at what we think the truth is, at what we believe is happening. And it put many people in a place where they were like trying to do a lot of research, and they were listening to a lot of content, trying to understand what was going on, and ultimately had to make their own choices. But in the process, you begin to realize, whether it's about the pandemic or about a trillion other things, that, oh, hang on a second. I thought when they told me this piece of information that it was true, but now I'm learning that they don't know what the right answer is, and they're just giving us this answer so that everybody will feel better or something. Well, good grief, what else are they doing that about? And then you start to sort of see a lot more areas, a lot more places where you've probably not been told the truth, and you begin to question a lot more. That's one of the very first things that does happen, is that questioning, that like it just keeps coming whether you want it to or not. Along the same time, because you're starting to question stuff, you're starting to look up things and ask people about things. You're starting to really ask yourself how you feel about things. When you start the process of really checking in, like, Angeline, how do you feel about X, Y or Z, how do you really feel about this particular thing? When you begin to do that, so you're externally looking for new information, and now you're visiting yourself internally for confirmation, validation, that kind of thing. What you're doing then is you're starting to listen to your intuition. You're starting to grow accustomed to what my body feels like when the truth is happening, what my body feels like when untruth is happening. You start to pay more attention to those things. You start to become aware in this other way, in a vibrational way is what it is. But it's about connecting to yourself. So many of us are not connected to ourselves because we're not taught to be connected to ourselves. In fact, we're taught expressly the opposite, to not listen to what we feel in our body and to do what our teacher says, our parent says, our doctor says, our friend says. But we are certainly not supposed to listen to what we want and to what we think. And so we learn early on to invalidate ourselves time and time again, in lieu of doing what we think we're going to get approval for doing. And in fact, that's sort of the way the world works, right? What it leads us to is depression and anxiety and low self-esteem, and believing that we have to trust people who are untrustworthy, even though we don't feel like it's right. So there's a lot of things that come from not listening to ourselves. And that's why it's so revolutionary once you begin this process to start intuitive training, to start really listening to your body, to start working with people energetically who do energy medicine or different, there's tons of different ways to use vibration and energy medicine. Lots of people at the beginning are drawn to things like tarot cards and pendulums and things like that, that are divining tools that will help you validate or figure out if the way you feel is right. And meditation is something that comes up usually at that time. And most of the time everybody says, but I'm not good at it. And keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Nobody's good at it at the beginning. But what we're doing when we start seeking those things out, when we start trying meditation, when we start looking at tarot cards and things like this, we're looking for validation. We're looking for what we've never, ever had unless we were doing what other people wanted. So it's this whole new vibration that you're bringing in. And that's why things in your world start to move. They start to shift. Once you begin to bring in this new vibration of, I'm going to listen to me because frankly, I don't know who I can trust out there anymore. And you start to really connect with yourself, then you're connecting with authenticity. And if there are things in your world that are not authentic or are not part of that vibration of authenticity and growth and movement, they fall. And so one of the things that comes often at the beginning of the awakening process, and quite honestly, I mean, if I'm honest, it doesn't stop. Because you're constantly, if you're on the process, if you're on the path, then you are constantly opening yourself up to more. You're growing and learning more, which shifts your vibration, which shifts what you bring in. But at the beginning, it can be very jarring. It can feel very disruptive. It can feel very scary because friends begin to fall away. You might have a shift in your job, in your relationship. your main romantic relationship or relationships, the way that you view coworkers, bosses, parents, the lady at the bank, they all shift because as you consume more information and continue to check in with yourself and get in alignment, every time you do that, you're bringing new awareness to yourself. You're opening yourself up further, shifting your vibration. So the biggest thing I want you guys to hear is that the questions are normal. The self-doubt is normal. People falling away is normal. Those things are hard. They are not easy parts of the awakening process to deal with. But I promise you that as you keep going, you will find that it gets a lot easier, because I'm sure you've heard this before. Everything's a spiral. It's all a spiral. The journey is not a path that goes in one direction. It's a spiral. And as you learn, you get to the next place that you have to consume more learning so that you can grow again, consume more learning so you can grow again. And you're constantly shifting who you are all the time because of that. You're constantly growing all the time because of that. And once you get into the groove of that, it can still be jarring when people leave, when you go through a big transition, but it doesn't feel like it did at the beginning. So I want you guys to hear that above everything else, that it's not, the beginning part is definitely the hardest part to digest, because it's a radical shift in the way you see the world and the way you see yourself. And it's a process, and it's intense. But it does get easier, I promise. After or during the time when things start to fall away, because your vibration is shifting, you also begin to see a lot of synchronicities. And I get a lot of questions about synchronicities, what does it mean? Does it mean something different if I see 222 versus 111? Does it mean something different if I see 1144 versus 4444? The book that I read in 8th grade that I still remember and think about oddly, some random guy at the grocery store that I haven't seen in 15 years came up to me and started talking to me about that very book. Weird things like that start happening. And people want to know often, it has to mean something. They want to ascribe meaning to every time it happens. And sometimes that's helpful, but in general, most of us find that there's a point where so many of the synchronicities are happening so often. Like today, because I knew I was going to be filming this today, I just sort of kept my eye on all the synchronicities that have happened so far in the day. It is 2:30 in the afternoon, and I've had 11 different synchronicities happen today. And every time that it happens, I just smile and say thank you. What that is, it's showing you that you're in alignment. It's showing you that energetically you are putting yourself in alignment with what is out there in the world. And when you do that, when you're on your path and you're in line with your own energy and where you're supposed to be, that's how the universe shows up. I'm trying this new thing and I'm really scared about it. And then I have 4 synchronicities happen in the next hour. I'm willing to bet that means you're on the right track. So that's sort of the way that I use synchronicities. I am never, it never ceases to amaze me. I feel, when the big ones happen, I feel shock and amazement still every time. I'm so grateful every time that it's thank you for showing me that, hey, I'm on the right track. I'm this thing that I've been really kind of nervous about, but I'm doing anyway. I'm doing it, and it feels good. So I hope that this was helpful for some of you. I hope that you were able to gather a little bit of validation for the process that you're going through. Please find me on Patreon, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm on all the things. and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy this content. Okay, have a good one. I'll talk